Hi, I'm Kim Skildum-Reid from Power Sponsorship in Sydney, Australia. And here is today's question. What's the best way to get sponsorship for staffing? All right, when I read this question, when it was posed to me, my brain exploded a little bit because it's going wrong in one of two ways, and neither one of them is okay. But there is a way around this. So, sponsorship for, as in how do we get sponsorship for, paying the light bill, keeping the lights on in our organization? How do we get sponsorship for this new stage at our festival? How do we get sponsorship for staffing or whatever? That's always a red flag. You don't want sponsorship for various assets, various functions. So there's two options on why people sort of frame up sponsorship like this and this sponsorship for this or that kind of idea. And the first one is grant thinking. And this is often charitable organizations, sometimes cultural organizations or community organizations that are looking for unallocated funds. So unallocated funds are not tied to a particular program or initiative that charitable organization might be doing. Instead, those are funds that once the sponsorship deliverables have been delivered, any excess can be used for the organization just to pay the bills, to pay the rent on the office space and that kind of thing. So unallocated funds is really, really, really valuable for charitable organizations, community organizations, and cultural organizations. So that may be the thinking behind this. How do we get sponsorship for staffing? Because oftentimes sponsorship is tied, which it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. Sponsorship should always be unallocated funds, but some organizations make a rod for their own back. And so that's one of the ways to think about this. It's wrong, but it's one of the ways that people do it. And the other one is a real first generation thinking. Now we're at fourth or last generation, and that's a whole other little tutorial. First generation is basically about visibility. It's what can we put a brand on? What else can we brand? Thinking that the more things you can brand, the more money you'll make. There is actually down here in Australia, there is one major league that just seems to take this to the nth degree. I mean, the exercise bikes next to the field are branded, and the chairs that the players sit on are branded, and when the players are all announced, every single one of them also has their own sponsorship, in addition to the overarching sponsorships for the organization. I mean, every bloody thing has a logo on it. But the idea is that the more stuff we can stick a logo on, the more we can charge. Again, that's very first generation visibility oriented, and really we've moved way beyond that. So basically the idea here is that if this was the fork in the road on the sponsorship for, it's basically if we need sponsorship for staffing, what else can we stick a logo on in order to get that sponsorship, in order to get that revenue that we need to pay for staffing. So first generation sponsorship is visibility oriented, and if you want to understand all the generations of sponsorship, I'll put a link to last generation sponsorship, which goes through the 4 generations and why you want to be operating at best practice or 4th generation. And I'll put that link in the video description. So if it's one of those two ways of thinking that would lead somebody to ask for how do we get sponsorship for staffing. So in order to not do this, to do this properly, you need to change your thinking. It's not about sponsoring various functions, various assets. You don't need sponsorship for a stage. You don't need sponsorship for staffing. You don't need sponsorship, for the drink bottles, and you don't need sponsorship for freaking lanyards. I mean, and how many conference things have I seen where, for $5,000 you can sponsor our lanyards for this conference? I mean, bloody hell. How are you supposed to leverage that as a sponsor? I mean, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. But so just change away from thinking about what can we stick a brand on or how do we get unallocated funds, and shift it up. This is not about sponsoring but specific things that you think you can either brand or that you think that you can, that it's going to underwrite your costs. It's about creating bespoke offers, customized offers for individual sponsors. So any significant sponsorship should be a customized offer. So the best option for most organizations is to make all sponsorship overarching. So it's an overarching sponsorship of your property. So, like let's just say you're a local government authority and one of your properties, and so that you're the rights holder, local government authority is the rights holder. The property is, for instance, a festival. So you would sell an overarching sponsorship to the festival as opposed to sponsorship of this stage and sponsorship of, the kids area and sponsorship of that and sponsorship of this. All of the sponsorships would be overarching. So the whole property, the whole charity, the whole team, the whole season, the whole event, whatever. And then there are epicenters around the various aspects of your organization, properties, programs, events, etc. So, if you are a local government authority and you are running a festival, you would have overarching sponsorships, but each of those would be different. And each of those would have little epicenters which are really leverageable. So it could be an overarching sponsorship of which there's an epicenter around the kids area, for instance, and they can do a lot of leverage and stuff with those young families, for instance. So the first thing is all sponsorships should be overarching. I mean, there are a few exceptions, certainly, but if you think about it this way and then think about, okay, after you get this overarching sponsorship, which gives you tons of flexibility of what you can offer, what epicenters are going to be right for a particular sponsor, as opposed to just selling them sponsorship of a specific discrete thing, because that gives you little flexibility and it's not really nearly as leverageable as if you give them sort of a wider gamut of benefits. So the second thing that I want to make, the second point that I want to make is that I want you to sell as much sponsorship as you can around your most commercial properties. So this is where that sort of, thinking about how can we get unallocated funds or how can we get more revenue. It's not about branding various stuff. It's like, look at your portfolio. You're going to have some things in there that are really, really commercial, like they're really sexy in a marketing sense. Don't just sell as much sponsorship around those as you need to break even. Like, if you've got a shortfall of, just pulling a number out of a hat, $140,000, you might say, oh, we need to go out and get $140,000 worth of sponsorship. But you might have a commercial potential value of $500,000 in sponsorship, in which case, why would you stop at $140,000? Why wouldn't you go ahead and sell as much as you can and concentrate as much as you can on raising all of that money so you can reallocate it, because it's unallocated funds, to the things that are less sexy and are going to be harder to sell. So that way you're not spinning your wheels selling things that are hard to sell, and you're selling lots of money around the things that are much easier to sell. So that actually gives you a lot more free money to do stuff with. And that's it. Need more assistance? Recommended additional resources and reading can be found in the video description. If you need professional help of the sponsorship type, of course, I provide strategic sponsorship consulting, in-house and group training, keynote speeches, coaching, and sponsorship systems design for large, diverse, or far-flung organizations. Please note, I'm not a sponsorship broker and I can't help you to secure sponsorship. There's also information in the video description about my comprehensive, on-demand online sponsorship courses for both sponsors and rights holders. Feel free to drop me a line if you have any questions about this video, or if you have a question you'd like me to address in another one of these Ask Me Anything videos. Contact details are in the description. If you found this video valuable, I suggest you subscribe to the channel so you hear about new how-to content as it becomes available. Thanks for watching, and happy sponsorship!